With that, let's bring in 2024 presidential candidate Vivek Ramaswamy. Vivek, it's always great to see you. Thank you so much for being on our program today. Look, there are definitely some positives, like Ashley's outlining, when it comes to trucking or medicine. Also, we've seen Amazon using robots and AI to streamline its business. Okay, but there's also some dark side. And we've seen from tech companies in general, whether it's social media or other developments, they don't necessarily have a way to self-regulate because they're profit-driven. Now, we are very pro-capitalism on this show, but we also understand that AI could be dangerous. If you were president of the United States, how would you manage this?
Look, I think there's a couple of key principles. One is we cannot adopt any outright bans that China is not also adopting. That would be the worst case scenario of all. But I do think there's some basic principles we can start with. One is draw a hard boundary between anything using AI and children. Protecting children, the response of human beings to AI is one of the greatest risks of AI. Start with protecting children. Number two is, here's a framework that at least can be a first step before we're talking about government involvement. Put liability on companies, strict liability, for unintended consequences of any protocols or algorithms they develop. This is a familiar principle in the law. Basically, if you're a chemicals company, you can't dump in somebody else's river. If you do, you're liable for that. Well, the same thing that goes metaphorically for dumping in somebody else's river with an algorithm or with a protocol. We aren't doing that today, but if we do make that clear, then companies have to take into account the risks and the costs of their algorithms in advance, which at least forces them to actually internalize those risks. That isn't happening today. I think it's a clean, next, and easy step that should not be controversial. So those are examples of how I would lead on this issue.
Vivek, those are really interesting ideas to consider on how to deal with AI here at home. But of course, as you well know, there are many other issues abroad to consider too, not just with AI, but pivoting to the Middle East. There have been at least 75 attacks on U.S. military forces in the Middle East since October 17th. President Biden facing criticism for not responding aggressively enough. Vivek, what would your response be?
I'd say a couple of things here. My general rule of thumb as the commander-in-chief is crystal clear. If you hit us, whichever group does it, we will hit you back 10 times harder, period. That's actually what you have to be as the commander-in-chief, is strong. At the same time, I would also, for the longer run, take a long, hard look at much of our presence in the Middle East. Places like Syria and Iraq, where we were told that we had actually removed our presence. But now we find out that we have people sitting there as sitting duck targets, fellow Americans in service. I'd take a long, hard look at that as well and say that there are many places where we have deployed our sons and daughters where we don't have any strategic reason to be in the first place. So I'll recognize both of those things. Even if there are people before me who made mistakes in deploying those troops, I still own that as the U.S. president. And my rule of thumb is, you hit us back, we're going to hit you back 10 times harder. But strategically, over the long run, I would also revisit making sure that we don't have people stationed, young men and women of this country, where they're not advancing American interests.
Vivek, you've got several GOP senators now calling for a China travel ban to prevent the spread of this mystery respiratory illness that we've seen in China. Would you support a travel ban in this instance or in similar instances?
The answer is yes. The job should be to protect Americans here at home. That's the top job of a U.S. president. I don't think we should apologize for that. And I think that there's a lot of mistakes we learned from in the COVID-19 pandemic, of awful decisions that policymakers in the U.S. made, locking down our schools, locking down our economy, vaccine mandates that weren't well thought through. Before we ever get there, let's at least make one of the decisions that actually should have been the right decision that was made. Even at a larger scale, we can do it this time around. If we know that there's something yet again coming from China, don't walk into that same trap. And I think it's telling that in the COVID-19 pandemic, what did you see from China and their government? They stopped travel within their own country while still allowing for international flights. And so China doesn't have our best interests at heart. but we need U.S. policymakers who do. I do think that would be a reasonable decision to take based on the facts as they evolve.
It's a great point with respect to China, Vivek, and everything is now coming to a head because we've got the Iowa caucuses just 6 weeks away. One of your opponents, Doug Burgum, suspending his campaign today. You're currently polling behind some of the frontrunners and some of the leaders in the Hawkeye State. How does your campaign move forward? When do you start to make some decisions?
Well, the decision I'm going to make is exactly how we're going to win this race. I'm polling at fourth. We're exactly where we want to be. I've been at anywhere between second and fourth nationally. I'm polling at fourth in Ohio, but in Iowa, excuse me. But one of the things that we are doing is seeing a lot of people showing up to our events in the lead up to the caucus season who have never participated in a caucus before. These people are not polled. Many of them are young. Many of them are college students. Many of them are people who may have historically identified as libertarian, but understands that we need a president who can actually win this time around. None of those people are polled. Many of them are my supporters. So I am confident we are going to deliver a shock on January 15th. And I think that puts us exactly where we want to be. Having expectations set where they are and then shattering those expectations, that's what's going to propel us forward in the rest of the race. I'm doing more events in Iowa probably than any other presidential candidate in modern history. People talk about the full Grassley. Well, I might be the only candidate that gets close to doing it times two times over to the 99 counties in Iowa. So I'm confident that we are going to deliver a drastic surprise in Iowa. And I love where we sit. And I think I'm going to be the nominee in the end of this.
All right, Vivek, we will be watching and bearing witness to all of it as it unfolds. Thank you, Vivek Ramaswamy, for stopping by with us this afternoon.